Welcome to The Standard. From Vancouver, I'm Randall Mark. Last night, we aired an exclusive interview with the balcony rapist, Paul Callow. Tonight, he's back, joined by his sister. Dubbed the balcony rapist for 5 rapes he committed in Toronto between 1985 and 86, Paul Callow was sentenced to 20 years in prison for the offenses. Released in February after serving his full sentence, he is now living with his sister, Karen Bardak, in the Fraser Heights area of Surrey, British Columbia. Mr. Callow and Ms. Bardak are with me now. Welcome to the show. Karen, let me start with you. You are watching television. This is what you told me. You're watching television with your cousin or something like that. You see that Paul's being released into British Columbia. You haven't spoken to him in 20 years, and something goes on inside of your head. What happens?
Well, actually, I read about it because prior to his release for about 2 weeks, there were a lot of newspaper articles. And so I learned what they had to say through the newspaper primarily because there was no news coverage on television. So I did that, and I really didn't know what to think because there was no contact. I mean, in many ways, I suppose I had to believe what they were writing. I assumed that they couldn't publish things that weren't true.
He's dangerous. He's a time bomb.
Yeah, and I had no way to judge that. So I guess for me, upon his release, the day of his release, I think I was as fearful as anybody else, maybe even more. But at the same time, because of my education, and I think Paul has said this before, education makes a huge difference. Because of my education, I was taught critical thinking. And through the critical thinking, I had to very quickly come over a period of 2 or 3 days to a place where I said, I need to see this for myself. That's what critical thinking is. You can't just take what you're told by anybody or what you read and just internalize it because it has to, you have to make your own judgments. You have to form your own opinions.
What did this propel you to do then?
Well, two things. One was that I had to find out for myself. And I guess the way I looked at it is even if everything was true, the right thing to do is to help.
Really? But why? Weren't you were scared, but you made contact with him. You made a phone call.
My worst decisions are made when I'm afraid or if I'm angry. People don't understand that. When you're in an angry mode or in a fearful mode, you make bad decisions. And I had to wait until I wasn't fearful. I wasn't angry, but I was fearful partly because I didn't understand what was going on.
And what was, as you read these stories, what did you say, I mean, as you've now come to see a different side of Paul, obviously, what wasn't true about those scenarios that were being given to you?
Well, that he was untreated. I mean, I found it hard to believe because for that length of time, why wouldn't you? Like, I couldn't find a reason, why wouldn't you? And because I knew him from childhood, that I don't believe anybody would spend 20 years doing nothing. Nobody. Right. Like, why wouldn't you? It would be a way to pass the time. It would improve you as a person.
You take me back to that first time. You make the phone call. You set up to meet at a coffee shop or something. What was it like to see your brother after 20 years and yet feel scared?
I wasn't scared.
You weren't scared. Walking in there, you weren't even scared at all?
No.
Huh.
I was, yeah, okay, I was, of the media.
Oh, of the media?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was watching things get really out of control. What happened is my fear of my brother subsided very quickly because I applied critical thinking. I had to, why am I afraid? I mean, nobody's done anything to me.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what he's really like or not like, or you can't be afraid of something you don't know.
Right. Paul, what was it like when you first saw her? What was going on inside of you?
It was, I guess, emotional in the sense that it had been over 20 years since I'd seen my sister. It was surprising to see her, and like I kind of crossing the street, she's sitting outside at the Starbucks, and to first see her, and then I thought, no, that can't be her. She's too young.
Too young.
Because we're both in our 50s, and I looked at her and I thought, no. Coming across the street, I thought, oh, she looks more like about in her 30s.
That's pretty nice. I love that.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good to see my sister, and it was like, and I think neither of us had any idea of how is it going to go.
Yeah, and what are we going to do?
Yeah, but it's the relationship was back like very quickly. It was like we were brother and sister.
Wow. And you said, you decided to take him into your house. Why? What would motivate you? You have a daughter, you have a son, 19, I think 17. What would motivate you to take in someone like Paul into that environment?
Because that's the environment he needed to succeed.
He needed a family.
I didn't want to die making the wrong decision. Like, I think life is all about choices.
Well, is there a spiritual component going on for you that we're...
Yes.
What? Tell me about that.
Well, there's two elements. One is family. And I just think that if family doesn't help each other, who is going to, first of all? And that's not spiritual. That's, I suppose you could say it is, but I very strongly believe that. And then I guess the second aspect is more to do with when I die, I want to like who I am. And if I make the wrong choice right now, or if I react out of fear and make the wrong choice, I might not like who I am when I die. And to me, I have to like myself. Even if I'm not dying, I want to like myself every day when I wake up.
What strain did bringing Paul into did it put a strain on your marriage, on your family?
My marriage is stronger now because of it.
Why?
Because you go through something together, and it brings you closer. You have no choice but to sit down and talk every day about a lot of serious issues. And I think a lot of people don't do that. We skim the surface on our relationships. This brought us all closer together as a family.
Paul, what was it like to live in, I mean, you've been living in an institution, all men, and all of a sudden you're with a family, kids, the whole thing. What was that like to adjust to?
It was like I'd already been adjusting on the streets to the freedom, so it's a lot more freedom than in prison. But at the same time, some of the places I'd stayed, like it was almost like being in prison. But to be with my sister, it was incredible. It was like, well, it's just like being a family again. That I hadn't been, even the family, like I said, was very dysfunctional with the relationship with my wife, and it wasn't really like this is
the health that you were experiencing.
Yeah,
here.
This is much better.
We after the break, I want to talk about what the reaction was like from the community that you were living in when Paul moved in. More with my guests in a moment.